Hello. Hi, my name is Grim Kells, and I use they, them pronouns, and I'm the founder and executive director of Grimalkin Records. So this is a presentation about our work. Oh, and I use they, them pronouns. And
I just want to leave you with this thought. I think the discussion we're having is about art and social policy. I want to remind us all that art is dangerous.
That's right.
I want to remind you of the history of artists who have been murdered, slaughtered, imprisoned, chopped up, refused entrance. The history of art, whether it's in music or written or what have you, has always been bloody because dictators and people in office and people who want to control and deceive know exactly the people who will disturb their plans.
That's right.
And those people are artists. They're the ones that tell the truth. And it's something that the society has got to protect. But when you enter that field, no matter where you are, whether it's Sonia's poetry or Toshi's music or Ta-Nehisi's, rather startlingly clear prose, it's the dangerous pursuit. And somebody's out to get you.
That's right.
You have to know it before you start and do it under those circumstances, because it is one of the most important things that human beings do.
That's right.
That's
right.
what we do.
That's right.
I basically chose to play that as kind of like a precursor to our work, and especially given the times that we are in right now, our current political situation. So some of the values we share: mutual aid, mentorship, advocacy, artist support, collaboration, and community care. And although we're a 501c, we don't consider ourselves a charity. So though we are technically a charity, we are run by, with, and for LGBTQ+, BIPOC, neurodiverse, and disabled artists, especially those who intersect at multiple marginalized identities. So myself, for example, I'm non-binary trans. I'm also have ADHD, and I have some health issues, chronic health issues, and probably like everybody now post-COVID, also have mental health, some mental health. So honestly, more and more folks, if you're not disabled now, you will be at some point in your life. All right, so a little introduction. So this is me. I do make music at Spartan Jetplex. My background is in fine art. I went to Tyler School of Art, got my bachelor's. I also have a master's of science in special education. I was a teacher for 14 years in Los Angeles and also here in Virginia. And then I moved into vocational counseling. And I started this project during that period of time when I was a vocational counselor. And in March 2020, when everything was shutting down, I had lost my job, and I basically pivoted all my time and energy into the Grimalkin project, and we sort of grown from there. Because originally we really were just a DIY record label back 2016 through like 2018. I'm so excited to say that we finally now have several volunteer support staff folks that help us with a variety of things. We have a writing team, which there's one person who's not here that should be here, but I haven't had time to update it. But we have some folks that are helping us with things like updating our website, and we have the Google Ads grant from nonprofits, and that's really complicated to manage, and so we have someone who helps with that. And we have several people helping with social media. Marie is one of those awesome folks. And they assist us with different things, and also spearheaded our annual zine, yearbook zine. And Maria was very instrumental in making that happen. Did you want to say at all anything about that?
Yeah, and then the other person, co-coordinating it on the left, who's not here, is in Texas, is Alex. We've been really grateful to have the chance to be able to do a lot of cool stuff with Grimalkin, and we're both new, as in like the past year.
Yeah.
At varying points in time.
Well, we're working really hard on shifting the planning and just the power back into the folks who are helping us, and having them drive what we're doing and how we're doing it. Our board right now, currently we have 4 solid board members. Michael Ryder is a musician. Jay Yoko is a music manager. And Sin the Siege, who unfortunately couldn't be here this evening, is also a musician, makes music under Sin the Siege, and Jonathan Hicks. That is our board currently. And by the way, if anybody is interested in being a board member, we are always looking for folks. We have some information on our website. There's an interest form that you can fill out. Okay, I'm gonna show this little video. It's 5 minutes.
Sorry if I'm staring at what I like to look at. Smiling across the room, hoping that you'll look back.
Grimalkin is different in a variety of ways. It's not just because we're queer and trans-led, or because we focus on mutual aid, or even because we're a collective, but because we really strive to help artists create their vision.
Pushing me away, pushing me away, pushing me away.
I remember being incredibly alone and feeling ostracized, feeling misunderstood, not heard. And I've realized that it's because of who I am as a non-binary person, as somebody that is Latinx. And I was very curious about Grimalkin Records. And I saw a roster of artists that looked like me. Some are non-binary, some are of color, some are neurodivergent. We are representing voices that have historically not been represented, that have been invisible.
But what I love about Grimalkin is that they've created this community of like-minded artists that make us feel at home. We feel equal, we feel loved and inspired, and it's a really good feeling to feel like your artistry matters. I don't know where we would be in these past couple of years had Grim not reached out to us, so I look forward to working with them in the future as well.
I was searching for a record label that truly centered queer and trans voices, and I was having a hard time finding labels that fit my ethics and values, let alone even existed. So I was really grateful and excited to be embraced by the Grimalkin community. I feel that I've grown a good deal as an artist and as a self-promoter, and I've been given the support and encouragement that I need to continue to grow.
Grimalkin isn't just like any other record label because they integrate community organizing and intersectional values into creating art. In a general sense, I believe that music, art, and politics are all inextricably linked. Within Grimalkin, I'm given the privilege to take up space as an artist with multiple marginalized identities. I'm grateful to be a part of Grimalkin, and I'm not sure where I'd be as an artist right now without their help and belief in everything I create.
I became a Grimalkin Collective member and board member because I know the work Grimalkin does is critical, because they provide multiple opportunities for musicians and artists and people who wouldn't normally have access to a lot of these opportunities, such as getting their music released, getting physical merchandise items, getting connected with shows, festivals, interviews, and other media coverage. And Grimalkin works outside of the capitalist and consumerist mindset and practices that the rest of the music industry works within.
For me, in my experience, one of the greatest things about Grimalkin has been its subversion, allowing me to work within the industry but against it, and to distribute my art and work with like-minded artists, but also be uncompromising. And one of the things that was hardest for me before finding Grimalkin is, as a queer artist, have a space to be myself authentically without having to bend to the whims of the industry. And with Grimalkin, I've been able to be true to myself and get my art out there and make lifelong connections I would have never made otherwise. And it's helped me grow, not only as a person, but as an artist. And I've loved my time here. It's it's been amazing.
So Grimalkin to me has always been a community. We're all friends here, and we help give a voice to those who might not have the same opportunities as others. And no matter which part of the world you're in, if you're queer, if you're trans, we're here for you.
It's in the way
we believe the things that are most important to do for an artist is to meet them where they're at, help them grow, create work that they are proud of, help them put it out into the world in a way they are comfortable with. And this is really not easy to do. We need continuous support to bring you good people making good music.
It'd be best just to hear a little bit about our work from other folks besides just me. All right, so I'm sure, like most of you know, if you are a creative, that the industry for art and music and whatnot is very top down, and the more marginalized you are, the more difficult it is to access resources and support. I'm not going to, so just so you guys know, I'm intended for this presentation to be something that we can gonna give to everybody if they are interested in delving in deeper, and put some links in here and whatnot for everyone. Because I don't want to just stand up here and just talk, but you can, when it comes to non-binary and trans folks, for example, you can see some of the statistics. Only one woman was transgender. Women of color were considered, just 13 out of 50 women producers were women of color, and 26% of all producers. So I'm not going to get into if you get into all this stuff, but I'm sure you've seen similar facts about how many cents, to the dollar that folks make and whatnot. So there's a lot of barriers that are happening, and it's the culture that we're in currently is, it's really it's making those making it even harder and more difficult for folks. So in general, our mission is to support and mentor trans and queer and disabled artists, and we do that in a bunch of different ways. We help artists with doing their music releases, whether they need help with mixing or mastering or anything like that. We work to collaborate and bring other artists together to help support them. So we match people up and that kind of thing. We also have an annual festival. We do shows and events, and the main purpose of our festival is to celebrate queer and trans joy, and also that is really important right now, but more than that, it's about sharing our skills and being paid fairly for them. So for example, last year, our budget for our festival, which takes place in October, was about $17,000, and about $16,000 went directly to the artists who were working and playing the festival, which I don't know if you're aware of. I think it's happening now, or was happening, like South by Southwest, for example. Most festivals aren't giving 89% of their budget to the people who are actually working and doing it. And that's part of what we're working towards, is sort of depending on other folks to throw us scraps. We are creating our own opportunities, and to not only share our skills, but also get paid, paid fairly for it. Yes, and so, yes, our vision is that artists can make a living wage, which, as I'm sure you all know, we are very far from that being a possibility. It's usually only something afforded a very few percent of folks, usually who are already entitled in some way. Either they already had connections or wealth and so forth. So we aren't trying to help people break into the music industry. That's not our goal at all. What we're trying to do is create systems outside of that. So, how you ask? Wait a minute. I think I have to click on this. Yes. So we provide resources, opportunities, mutual aid. We fundraise to cover costs. So we have a sort of activist organizer model for our lease process. We have a submission team of artists and community members that when somebody submits a record album for consideration, a team reviews it. And if they are someone who meets our priority and who we service, we're gonna work with them. And so maybe their album isn't up to like what we feel should, maybe they have a mixing issue, or like, give you an example. We had an artist, we loved it, but their voice, they were burying their voice, in the mix and whatnot. And so in a case like that, we just gave them some advice, or like, hey, what do you think about this? We think your vocals should be up higher. They're actually good, And so they were able to go back in and do it themselves. But in some cases, we'll have folks who really, they're new and they might not really know how to mix, because writing a song and then recording it are two, they're all different skill sets. So what we'll often do is if somebody comes to us and they're having a struggle with something like that, again, we'll match them up with somebody, and we'll either raise the funds so we can pay the artist who's supporting them that's in our community, and so that the person isn't accruing debt or what have you. So like a regular label, and again, we're not really a record label, but like a regular label is going to give you they usually give you money up front that you are expected to pay back from your release. And in some cases, people really get trapped into that situation because their album doesn't come through financially the way they had hoped. So we don't worry about any of that. So what we do is, in exchange for all the support, we're expecting you to also provide support to our community. And we have different ways in which an artist can support our community, and then that is the exchange that we make. Because we're trying to affect change, and our mission is bigger than just artists creating. And so by helping artists learn how to be advocates for themselves and their community is a huge part of what we do. Transparency is super important, especially about financials. We actually have a spreadsheet that shows all money going in and out that we share with the folks who work with us. And we also work with a lot of different community partners, because as we know, Grimalkin can't possibly do all the things that a person needs to access to live, their full life, a healthy life, the life that they want. And so we work with a lot of different community partners on various things, whether it's maybe they provide gender affirming care, or maybe they do STI, HIV testing, or they need mental health services. We can connect them we have partners in our community like the Virginia Anti-Violence Project, Nations Foundation, the Health Brigade. And so we do activities and collaborations with them also, like they all come to our festival and table and talk. So like our festival is like a big community event, and we also do other events with them when we can. We're currently have an open call right now for a music compilation, and the theme is Queer Healthy Love, and that is a collaboration with the Virginia Anti-Violence Project. They have a workshop series called Queer Healthy Love to help queer folks develop healthy relationships and what that looks like and what that means. And so this is like to help raise a little bit awareness about what they're doing, raise a little money for them, and that kind of thing. So we do a lot of that in our work. We also have like relationships with, people who provide employment support. Yeah, I had to get a lot of cute gifts, cat gifts. Yeah, so like I said, we're forging alternative paths that are outside of industry norms. And what our hope is that we don't expect, streaming and like Spotify, and we don't expect those things necessarily to fall, but if we create our own opportunities and we have access to all the things we need, it won't matter. Like we don't need that track on the playlist, hopefully, that might go viral, or that kind of stuff. Like that's just not, it's not what, most people aren't making good art so that they can get, or an album so they can get it on a playlist. Like that's, yeah. Anyway, so as I said, we're not trying to break people in or climb the ladder. We practice wealth reclamation, which basically is about redirecting resources and money back into our communities. And as I mentioned, that's who we want. We want people who are passionate about doing that. And so that's who we look for when it comes to music releases. However, everything else we do does not require any kind of volunteering or whatnot. Like you could be so being in our festival doesn't require, it's just the music release process. And the reason why we had to do it that way also is because if we were working with every artist and they're not invested in what we're doing, then that's not really fulfilling our mission. So we've had to, over the course of our evolution, we are constantly tweaking what we're doing to make sure that it is most effective in achieving our mission, and that everything we're doing is part of that. Oops. Yeah. So again, I mentioned artist management, helping them. We do help them distribute. We help them book shows, all those kinds of things. GrimWorks is our educational part where we do workshops. Like currently, we're having we're calling it financial literacy for musicians, which doesn't sound very sexy, but one of the things we realize is that if you don't know a lot about money management and whatnot, that's already, that's already a hindrance for a lot of folks. But then tied to that, how complicated the collecting of royalties is for your music, or as an artist, like, why is it important to copyright your work and that kind of stuff. So the series that we're doing right now with Jay Yoko, who's one of our board members, they're an expert in that area. And so we're kind of collaborating where we're providing resources for basic financial literacy, but then moving into like specifically how an artist can make sure they're getting all of the money that they should be getting. Because you have to register, with 3 different companies just to get all those royalties, and a lot of folks just aren't aware of that, I was just going to briefly show you our website. Is that cool? I hope I did it okay. If you're interested, we hope you'll check it out. We have our to give you an idea of our festival. This year, it's going to be October 11th and 12th in person, and then we do have a virtual day because we have folks all over the country and outside of the United States who work with us. So we also have folks who, even if they're local, for whatever reason, disability or whatnot, cannot attend an in-person type of event. So we provide a virtual day so that folks who can't come for whatever reason can still participate and watch. And we're hoping to be able to live stream our in-person days this year, but last year we just didn't quite raise enough money because you have to get a Starlink or something like that. It is a ridiculous amount of money. We tried using the Wi-Fi at the venue. It did not go well. So yeah, we are hoping to do that though, because accessibility is super important to us, and it would be most accessible if we could actually live stream it too. So we're always trying to be as accessible as possible, but sometimes, money and resources can kind of get in the way. And so you make it's like baby steps, that we're moving forward, but something we're always talking about. But down here, we have some photographs from our festival that you can go through and see. Anything you could possibly want to know about us is here. Organizations we supported. We have a strategic plan, mission story. We have a band camp and our artists. This explains joining the collective or leasing with us. We have a calendar, and I just had mentioned these open calls. This is for the compilation. This is for the cohort. You can jump in any time on the cohort, even if you missed one. Our next one's April 3rd. And we currently have because we tend to center around music, but it's really all the arts. Like, for example, Marie and Jerry are here, and they're both artists, but they're not musicians, So this project, we had done a Suspiria, the original film Suspiria. We did a remix challenge. And so folks made remixes using the album. And so now what we're doing is we're putting out an open call for making a video remix. And this is like a great project too for folks who maybe they're just learning how to edit for the first time. I'm not an expert at this stuff, and I play around. I pretty much self-taught with that kind of thing. And so I feel like it's something that can appeal to folks who are just starting, and also folks with more experience. And so yeah, that's something that anybody can be a part of if you want to. We have a Google form basically for all of them that you just fill out to be a part of it. You can also follow our calendar. If you use Google, if you use the Google Calendar, you can subscribe, which is really cool, so that you can kind of see what's happening at any time. But anyway, just to give you some idea of some other community partners, I just feel like I can share. These are some of our relationships. So you can see we have a relationship with the KI department of VCU, but we also just in general with VCU, like Jerry, you're a graphic design major, right? Or mass communications, yeah. So you can see we kind of have people kind of like all over, the arts, basically who can intern with us and volunteer, obviously. There's a Virginia Anti-Violence Project. Music Cultura RVA is a really great source for folks if they need help with resume building and stuff like that. They're also, Ray, who runs it, also is a sound engineer and is doing sound for us again at our festival, which I'm excited about. But anyway, you can see there's a bunch of stuff here. And anyway, moving on. I think I gave you a little bit already of our history, but as you can see, we officially started using the name in Grimalkin in 2018. And over the time, we've kind of evolved and grown. So by 2020, as I mentioned, losing my job, this went to a full-time position for me. And we've kind of gone through there. We got our 501c3 status in 2022. And we keep making progress, but it's a very slow process, which is a good thing because usually things that happen quickly don't stick. So this has been a very slow crawl for us forward. But to give you an idea, like our revenue last year, our budget was a little over $55,000. So as you could see that. We are not, we're very, we're a startup essentially. It's been, but $55,000 is like the most that we have, so far. I think we approached. That was 2023. So I think this year we're going to look at we're starting to do our taxes, but our 990. And I think it's going to be somewhere around 60 that we had done last year. So we're making some progress, And we also saw last year a dip in folks not being able to be a monthly donor anymore on our Patreon and whatnot, because people are really suffering right now financially. And so that was, we're always trying to ramp up and educate people on what mutual aid is, because I think folks feel like, oh, if I can't give $100 or $50 or even $25, but with mutual aid, you're only sparing a couple bucks, but you're doing that every month. You're giving, and that's more what we're looking for, is having building our grassroots support so that we are less reliant on funding from wealthy foundations and those kind of things. That's really, we are dependent on that right now, so, but we're always working towards building that grassroots support. So, there we go. Yeah, so this is a short version of our strategic plan, which breaks down how we do stuff. So building capacity and networks to advance collaborative solidarity, building and bridging connections, communities into other communities. Then we have the artist support, which is artist-centered alternatives to exploitive approaches, and we kind of approach it from a DIY mentality, and we're about redistributing wealth and resources back to our community. And education and mentoring. And that is like the third key, which is making sure that people have all the skills and education resources and whatnot that they need to be able to be self-determined with their lives. And then basically our fourth goal, which is in here, is just to continuously develop and evolve these three. And so there's a long version too on the website. I'm not sure if anyone here is familiar with the Just Transition framework, but we follow that framework. It's vision-led, it's a set of principles and practices. It's about shifting power and changing our economy from one that's extractive to one that's like regenerative, or sometimes people call it like a living economy. We're currently in the extract. We are extracting to the point where, it's gonna eventually, it is going to fall. It's going to break. It's happening. But we have to prepare for what we want there to be when that starts crumbling and falling as it is now. You can look more into this, but basically here's the key ways. I love this graph because it basically it really pinpoints everything, and it tells you this is how we do it. How are we going to move from this extractive economy to one that's like a living economy? So we need to shift economic control to communities. We need to democratize wealth and the workplace. We need to advance ecological restoration. We need to drive racial justice and social equity, and relocalize most production and consumption, and retain and restore cultures and traditions. So you'll see, I think a lot of the folks that we work with and community partners we have follow this framework, even if they don't necessarily like put their finger on it, because honestly, I don't think I did either until I learned more about this stuff, doing the organizing work. And yeah. I think it's great just because it gives us a plan on how we can really make the change for what we want. So some of our progress, we keep developing our mentoring and production networks. This actually takes you to them if if you're interested. We've held 6 workshops in 2024 and 19 in total since 2022. This year we held one session of that 6-session cohort that I had mentioned. We have raised and paid out over $81,000 in mutual aid and from music sales and other opportunities. So like shows, workshops, our festival. We have, so you can see we redistributed about 10,000 in 2022, and then it went to 35,000 in 2023. That went up to 36,000 for 2024. And so you can see we keep making that progress towards shifting wealth back to the community. And although it was mainly volunteer work, we try to transfer it to dollars, because that's what people who might be able to fund us and things like that can understand. But it also helps it helps you get a better understanding of like the time maybe and the commitment that's put in. So it's about the equivalent of 37,000 in production services to over 10 artists. And that's the equivalent of 38,850, which is about 259 hours in mentoring support to 57 artists in 2024. So production work, obviously, because of capacity, is a little lower than the mentoring. That's like a huge, considering too that I mentioned our revenue, if you compare it to that, I feel like it's, give ourselves a good pat on the back. We expanded the fest, so originally it was just a one in-person day. We expanded it to 2 days and a virtual day. Our fest supported over 66 artists, which was double what we had done the year prior, which is amazing. That means when I say 66 different artists, I'm also including people who are working the festival as well, because so it wasn't 66 acts or anything like that, but I think we had about maybe 15 different bands in total between the 2 in-person days. We were so excited. We teamed up with Girls Rock DC. There's no longer one in Richmond. We're trying to also connect with Girls Rock in St. Pete's in Florida, because we have a artist there who works with them. So we're pretty excited. They participated in our virtual day, and one of the past student bands, they came with their parents and they played Petrichor. They're really cool. And I just got an email from them this week that they were so inspired by our festival and what they saw that they're going to do their own fair where they have bands play, and these are young. They're not adults. They're young. These are youngsters, and they're going to have a slate of bands, and they're going to invite community members. Like what we did. We had like a passport system where like people, if you interacted with the community partners and did their activity, you get a stamp. You could turn the stamps in then for raffle tickets. So we do a lot of things like that to sort of get people motivate people a little bit to actually interact. And we did that because our first year we noticed the community partners are kind of hanging around at the tables. People weren't really like, interacting with them. So we're like, okay, we got to do this different because we really are trying to make this a community event, and family friendly too. So we thought like with bringing in Girls Rock and stuff like that, that would help in that regard too. So, yeah. So, what did I say? So you can see 86% of our budget went. Okay, I was wrong. I gave you the wrong numbers. So 10,900 in the 2023, which was 86% of the budget. And so this year, meaning actually I shouldn't say this year, I should say last year, is $14,935 that went to artists, which was 89%. Yeah. We do try to provide some food and Airbnb and things like that. If we can raise enough money this year, we didn't manage it last year, but we would love to be able to pay people with reimburse like travel costs and food and stuff like that. Yeah, so our community, cultivating partnerships, like I said, that's really part of what, so we did the Get Grimalkin, which was a scavenger hunt virtually that was during our festival. And then these are just some other general things that we've been able to do, referring 8 artists for healthcare, vocational services. We held 19 virtual and 6 in-person events, and so forth. But we hold our annual Grimmies every year, which is a virtual showcase, again, that anybody can participate in. And that is usually held January. And then our festival, like I said, is October. Technical assistance has been huge for us in moving forward. It sounds like a weird thing. Like when I heard technical assistance, I was like, are they giving me like technology help? Like what are they? That's not what it is. It's really just like coaching, consultating, and stuff like that. So it has really helped us to work with our community partners. So one of our funders is the Queer Mobilization Fund. They provide training, and you can take as much advantage of it as you want. You want to meet with somebody weekly, you can do that, and things like that. So we've been trying to make the most out of that so that we can develop what we need to do so that we can sustain ourselves long-term financially and like what I call like workload sustainability. Yeah, so finally have a strategic plan for that. But anyway, I'm going to move on because I don't think you need me to read stuff to you. And then another thing that we're really focusing on is developing our internships and having our interns and volunteers be instrumental in planning and, like we're going to do a 6-week fundraiser that's volunteers are going to participate in some interns. Refocusing back on the folks that are working with us. So much of like doing this work is like, how can I get all these things done? And instead of kind of worrying about that kind of thing, we want to put more of that energy into what do the people who are here, what do they need, and what are their strengths and skills, and having them be a full part of what's happening. And again, shifting stuff away from me. I don't even want to be an executive director. I would prefer if we just had a team of equal folks, you know what I mean? And so that's what I'm hoping we're moving towards, We offer a lot of stuff: graphic design, video editing, social media support. If you're interested in being, I was really hoping that we could establish a relationship with the University of Virginia. We work with VCU mainly, and we've worked with ODU, but it would be amazing if there's anybody here and is interested in being an intern or volunteer, either one, you can actually, can I click on this? I don't want to mess us up again, but we are on Handshake. But if you're we don't want this to just be offered to students either. So, you can apply just through a Google form. And so we have information about our internships there. It doesn't matter if you went to college or not, that kind of thing. Okay, I think I'm here. So here's, what do I do here? Yeah. These are some things ways that people can help us. I'm really hoping everybody here today would fill out our, it's just a sheet, attendance sheet, but I could add you to our newsletter. We don't spam people repeatedly. We send one email per month of our events and activities and opportunities, and then quarterly we send a quarterly newsletter that focuses more on our progress and success of the us as a nonprofit, or that kind of thing. So I hope you'll sign up, learn more about us. These are all our social social contacts, and then we got to the part where we're doing our. I hope I didn't go too long. Resonance. This is our practice activity. It's kind of a two-part. The first thing, well, actually, before we do this, I think we should stop and just see if anybody has questions, and then we can get into this, if that's cool with everybody. Yeah. Does anybody have questions, or even questions for Marie as a volunteer, or Jerry as an intern? You can ask them questions. Yes?
Yeah. Hey, thank you so much for being here. My name's Mandy. I really appreciate your focus on democratization throughout your conversations. And I don't mean to take away from that, but I would really be interested to hear about what inspired you to do this really important but often overlooked work, and to bring these folks together into a setting where as a group you can bring these supports and resources to a lot of more folks.
Yeah. So what inspired me to get started? Yeah. Well, okay, so I guess when I was young, I was always into music and art, always drawing all the time. I thought I was going to be a painter. And then, let's see, I kind of thought I was going to pursue art. I did a lot of jobs, like food service, retail, whatnot. And I mention this because it does play into where I am now. Those opportunities, I think, are really important. I hope, I think you have a better understanding on what it's like for somebody who doesn't have choices, if you work in any of those fields. And that definitely had an effect on me. I actually then ended up putting myself back through school because I had a bachelor's of fine art. So, you can't really get, at least I don't know, I was a sculpture major and stuff like that. So, you're not, I did some jobs like artist assistant, stuff like that, or what have you. But anyway, I went back to school to get a master's degree and be a special education teacher. And that really just came from the fact that before doing that, I was actually canvassing for California Peace Action. I was living in Los Angeles. I was knocking on doors every night. And part of what we were doing is talking to folks about, wouldn't you like to see your tax dollars go back into schools and healthcare and all these things instead of the military, and stuff like that. So I kind of, that I think helped me learn a bit more about organizing work and stuff like that. And so then I was a teacher for 14 years. I'm disabled, like I said. I also struggled when I was in school. A lot of teachers thought I was just stupid, and stuff like that. When I knew I wasn't, you know what I mean? So I was just like, and so, yeah, I think that definitely informed a lot for me. And then I was always having to be in the closet, basically, too. Even if you teach or live in Los Angeles, You know, I can't explain it, which is like living in a bubble there. It's like you forgot how crazy a lot of the country is when you leave Los Angeles. But yeah, so that's definitely, I think, informed me. And then I got into vocational counseling. I saw all the problems within the school system, working in the system that tied my hands. I felt like I wasn't, I know I helped a lot of kids. I know I did that, but it got to a point where all they wanted me to do was teach kids how to pass a test, with standardized testing. And I just I don't even feel good about it if my kids pass it, because it's like big deal. Great. They know how to pass this test. Great. So I was kind of like, I got to get out of this. And so then I moved into vocational counseling and ran into some of the same system problems, but not quite as bad as the school system. I really intended to stay in that position till I retired. I'm 51. And when I lost my job, I was kind of like, what am I going to do? But I had already started Grimalkin as a side project, as a DIY record label, and I had dreams of turning it into more of a community building, collective power organizing shift, and using art as a vehicle for that. And and then I lost my job. So honestly, if I hadn't lost my job, I don't know. I can honestly say I don't think I'd be doing this, because it just seems so much like a pipe dream in my head when I was working full time. How could I possibly do something like that full time? But I don't have kids, and I did save money. Teachers and vocational counselors don't make what they're worth. But if you don't have children, you could save money, So I was able to kind of make that leap then when I lost my job. Got unemployment for a year, just was super frugal. I've always been kind of frugal my whole life. I was very fortunate to have parents that taught me about financial literacy, really, and that's another part of why I feel like it's so important. School systems are failing children, it's they're more concerned about kids passing a test for Algebra 1 instead of how can these people, how can they in their life build credit, and all these things that if you didn't have an adult in your life that sat you down and showed you these things, you probably, you don't, you don't know, so I felt like that was a key problem too. So all of those things basically informed my work. But yeah, it was sort of I don't know, some weird cosmic thing, I think, because finally now that I'm doing this, it's not easy to do it, and I probably work way more than I did my last job, which was a really hefty job. I was on call 24/7 as a vocational counselor. But I am so much happier now, and again, this is the first job I've ever had where I could be me. My whole self, my authentic self. I don't have to hide that I'm queer, or I don't have to mask my my disabilities, or any of that stuff. So, yeah.
If I can say, kind of in response to that response of why I was drawn to Grimalkin to work with them, is also a testament to kind of Grim's background without knowing their background in education. Is I was looking for outlets of educating other people and being educated. I graduated school from Kinetic Imaging, which we partner with at VCU Arts, and it felt like a university is this bubble, this self-sustained bubble of community care, and you teach each other, you have organizations, you work with each other, and you're taught these systems of working with each other and educating each other, and then you're put out into the real world, and it's people aren't doing it in the real world, and it's scary and it's surprising. So I was looking for that, and I found Grimalkin, and I've learned a lot about organizing. I grew up, in a rising digital age, where people weren't going to in-person places, that much anymore. And Grimalkin's taught me how to connect with people, use the internet to find people online that are like you. You can see yourself, other artists, queer people, BIPOC people, neurodiverse people. And you can use those internet tools to organize in the real world. That's been totally invaluable to me. And also having like newer interns and newer volunteers come on, and we hop on Zoom and we talk about their tech problems. We talk about projects that they want to do. We talk about like designs that they want to bring to Grimalkin. And I think that education, is like...
And that everybody's voice is important.
Yeah.
Jared, did you want to add anything about it? Okay, yeah.
So, everyone here is creative, right? You're doing creative things. Can you talk about your personal work and what that looks like? And then can you also talk about, like, is it fed by Grimalkin? Is that work really feeding your own work that you make? Artwork, music?
Well, if I'm being completely honest, I will say in some ways I'm still struggling with the work balance of Grimalkin and my music and art and things like that. I will say I've kind of I'm trying to, I'm working on making it more of a priority. I'm not always succeeding, but I do think, yeah, I don't know, I guess that's what as far as being inspired, I definitely think the work does, I mean, how can it not, inform or seep into like anything that creative that we're doing. Yeah, but I'm gonna say I need to I need to do better for myself, to be honest, and I am working on that. I'm working on that. Marie, what about you? Did you want to share anything about your art and so forth? Because
Yeah, I'm like a new media experimental animator, like tech weirdo. And I think only doing like a little bit of sound, just like at a very silly level. I think the work that I do well and that I find joy in, which is based in visual, time-based media, does pair very well with sound-based artists. And I am an artist that loves collaborating with other artists. I think as time goes on, I think it's something that I've found I need to be doing to be creative. So Grimalkin's definitely been a great outlet for that.
Yeah, and you've contributed visuals for artists that, music and whatnot. So we have a lot of that happening that
It was your music, and it was Sorka's writing, and it was my video.
Yes.
Yeah. So it was 3 artists working together.
Yes, it was 3.
I love that.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Anyone else have any questions or comments, or is there anything you just want to, that really resonated, or anybody want to share anything like that?
Financial literacy for artists and service workers, is such a huge deal. It's so cool that you're doing that.
Yeah.
Being an artist who's in bands that are on labels that used to be independent but aren't anymore, that they don't. We luckily were personal thing, but like we were friends with them, so they were transparent with us. But they're big enough now that they're not with artists, and that division grows and grows as we continue in our extraction culture. Is we continue in where capitalism's driving record-making decisions now more than it did in the '90s, for example. And it's so hard to even think it's okay to approach that when people are so like still feeling so vulnerable about making art in general. And, you know, and it's like legitimizing it by saying, no, you should, and let's talk about like the budget that will help you do it. Like you're gonna do it, you should do it no matter what. I think it's amazing that you're focusing on that. And it's such a hard thing to talk about. I mean, it's like sex and politics and financial literacy. Like it's three things.
It's taboo.
Yeah.
And it's designed that way because the wealthy people, they don't want you to know, you know, what's really going on. But yeah, I think the only thing I will say is like, how is there anything you think that Grimalkin or an organization can do to make people feel like they see something like financial literacy for musicians, or maybe there's a better way to phrase that or something, where they see that and they're not going to be ashamed to come, because that's like a huge problem right now. You know, people are embarrassed. And so what we're trying to do with that kind of stuff is like give people the resources and tools for some of that basic stuff. Like, if you want to build your credit or understand how to do that, or why it's important, here, you can go to this reliable source, learn about it. But hey, if you want some more help with that, you can reach out. And because I'm also a work incentive advocate practitioner, which is like this really big whatever name for, when I was a vocational counselor, one of the things I did was help people with navigating their benefits in regards to working. So they wouldn't either lose their benefit or make sure they didn't lose the health insurance aspect of it, Medicaid or Medicare, that kind of thing. And so, I don't know why did I even say that? So that if folks want to know more, if it's something I can help with, I can do it. But we also have folks we could refer them to get that one-on-one help. And the more in the actual workshops, we're doing more of the music-related stuff, so that people don't feel like they have to say anything about this basic stuff. We just want them to be aware of it, and that they can, access these resources for free. And then if they want to know more, need additional help, they can reach out for that. And so we're not focusing on that in the actual workshops too much, because of the fact that, so that's why I posed the question back to you all, because I don't, people see that and then they're like, oh, I don't know if I really want financial literacy, you know what I mean? And so I guess I would, would love to hear if people had ideas as to like, how do we frame it, or how we get folks in the door who need it? Because I do think that we could be reaching more people, but probably aren't because of that barrier.
Yeah, I would like to know too. I used to be a financial literacy librarian for 18 to 29-year-olds. And what didn't work was saying budget, but what did work was like, we're gonna make duct tape wallets. Like we're gonna get together, we're gonna make something. It's gonna be something that like is free to make, or like very cheap to make.
Yeah.
And then we'll talk about how much you saved by making it, and then we'll make something together. And like the longer, like when people were working on something together, that act of creation makes you vulnerable around other people, and then you can start, for some reason, talking about like the credit card that you put in there. Yeah. Like, oh, by the way, did you know that if for some reason in America you want to buy a boat in 30 years, it's probably better if you're in debt now, because that's how you build your credit score. Let's talk about not being in debt, but building it, and like just using a single example. Like this amp costs $900. Like how much, like, and you can put this much in your duct tape wallet. It was crazy. I didn't believe it would work. Okay. And then it sort of did that, and working with like food banks, and talking about pickling, for example. Yeah. Like making pickles in an hour, and then talking about how much money you save, and then how you can take those pickles on tour with you, and like just like or whatever. Like these were the only things that worked. It didn't work in private. Like like working with private organizations like the Financial Industry Regulatory Authority, for some reason, they actually have really nice people working there.
Yeah.
But you can't say that out loud because no one will come.
I know,
Yeah.
yeah.
But
I think what Jason's saying about like coming to things from another direction, you know, and creating space. So my background is more in the visual arts than in the musical arts, and I ended up talking to a lot of folks who like either are artists and are like gonna have an exhibit, or are artists and just want to like just don't know how to take that next step, right, into like getting their visual art into other spaces, you know, and they just aren't kind of the things you're saying, but in a different, you know, slightly different part of the arts world. Like they don't know how to like create materials that they can send to a gallery, even if it's like a nonprofit gallery, you know, and they don't, just because they haven't done it and no one is out here teaching them, you know, it's like totally aligned with the work that you're talking about. And with those folks, like I just meet them in totally other ways. You know, it's like we'll be talking about something else, or they're like a colleague, or they're a friend of a friend, and it just comes up naturally in conversation. I think in addition to coming around to it from another direction, it's also just about relationship building.
Yeah,
you know,
definitely.
It's like they've been to your events, and they see that you offer this.
Yeah.
And then I know there's a lot of shame around money.
So
Sometimes just saying like,
there is.
like I really try to forefront if I'm like working with a student or something, to be like, I sucked at this when I was an undergraduate, so like, let's talk about why it's hard, or like, listen, I spent my whole undergraduate career not wanting to talk to a librarian or an adult like as much as I could. You know, so sometimes just saying that stuff out loud, or like, you know, everything you said, meeting people where they're at.
Yeah.
Like, I think also if they see it more and more as they get to know the organization, like, they'll be like, oh, right, I know Grimalkin has that workshop, like, I'm definitely going to go next time. You know?
Well, I know there's folks that are interested, but then they just are like, oh, you know, and they don't want to show up. But it's also virtual too, so it's a little harder. It's a little harder than, you know, doing it one-on-one or in a group, like persons. But
one thing,
work on it. Go ahead. No,
Oh, I'll say one thing I connected with when you said extraction is how much there's an industry built around exploiting people who want to be creative and get their work out there.
Yes.
There's an entire industry built around extracting money from artists in any field. My more particularly for me in the film festival circuit is basically extracting money from people who are trying to make things and then not giving them anything. Or even not necessarily being a real film festival. You know, that kind of stuff. And like I said, there's a lot of shame around it. I've submitted to something that wasn't a real film festival one time, and I lost that money. It just disappeared, you know, into thin air. But there's also, you know, residencies that are for profit. There are, you know, like just so many opportunities that are out there to take your money away from you. So I'm wondering, even if it's a don't get stolen from thing instead of a financial
that's
literacy.
a good one.
You know.
You
know, ways to avoid being.
I know, because I feel like the phrase financial literacy, we need to go with some other phrase, and I haven't put my
saving up for a big piece of equipment is something everyone you know wants to work on, no matter your field even.
There's a thing that, and I don't know, and I'm sorry, you all probably.
Yeah,
like,
we're over here
talking. Would you go to a financial literacy workshop? Like, what would you go to? Like, what would it be called? What would not trick you into going, but like maybe inspire you into going?
I like the idea of like making something, like how you were saying. I think that's more of a motivator. Because like, this is Claire. Me and Claire go to a lot of things, and like what you're saying, I think people are more vulnerable when you're like making something and you can have like a normal conversation and like you learn things, and then you kind of become more comfortable, so then you can, I don't know, come together and then learn something from each other, but then also like it can be guided by someone that's trying to explain on how to budget or how to do something. But I do like the idea of creating something together and not just being like lectured at, because I think it's more intimidating and it's already kind of scary to be vulnerable that I don't know how to do this and I'm struggling with this. So I do like the idea of like making something. I think that's like, to me that would be interesting, and I'm good at that.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to give that some thought. Like, how can we do that in like a virtual setting? Like, maybe there's some virtual tool, or like I don't know. I don't know. I'll have to think about it.
There's something I was gonna mention. I'm sorry, jet lag at this moment. Just really hitting. Failure confessions. Like at a conference that I used to help run, the most attended session every year was
Yeah.
the 2 hours of all of us, almost reality show, like, for better or worse, talking about, like, talking about something that we have just majorly effed up at work. Or like something that, like, you know, and so like doing, like, framing that where, you know, like when you're presenting something, for example, about financial literacy, and you lead
With my mistake.
with, hey, here's the thing I did, without feeling, you know, it's like, you know, maybe talking about the emotions that you felt, and, you know, you're also still up there talking about it, so you have made it through it, and so you're an immediate example that it's okay. But then you're like admitting, like, I'm here teaching this, but that no one does this right. It's just like art, like we all have our own way to it, but there are certain methods that get you to your specific end. And the failure confessions can happen virtually, where everybody just shares a story about some ridiculous thing. You know, like Josh submitted to a fake film festival. I bought a $600 van thinking it would get me on 30,000 miles across America, and the axle fell off going up a mountain and, you know, outside Knoxville. You know, like, should have known. Yeah, you know, I'm still alive, but like it was terrifying, and you know, it's fine.
Did you finish the tour?
Yeah, we did.
I know.
U-Haul was having a sale that weekend, so you know, like, but like stuff like that too, where like the vulnerability can come from like storytelling.
Yeah.
You know, like everybody loves to hear it. Everybody loves. No one wants to see someone fall down and get hurt. People love seeing people fall down and get back up.
Yeah.
Like you know, and being
that's a
there
good
to talk
point.
about it might help.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. I feel like I'm getting, well, you know, we're all about the mutual support. Yeah.